Hi guys, Olive here today to do a review of What We Lose by Zinzi Clemmons. This is a fairly new release, having just come out in July of 2017. It was published by Viking Books, and my hardcover copy came in at 217 pages. This is a short, quick reading novel that has a mixed media format. Most of the book is composed of emotion-packed vignettes, but interspersed sporadically throughout the book, there are news articles, blog posts, black and white images, even graphs. The experimental structure of this book helps to tell the story of our narrator, Tandi, at various points throughout her life, but we particularly focus in on the time surrounding her mother's death from breast cancer. We do get portions from her childhood where we meet her larger-than-life South African immigrant mother and her Black American father. There are portions in the book that outline the development of a very close female friendship that she has, and there are also portions dedicated to her romantic escapades. Then, most importantly, we get sections from her time spent in college when her mother was beginning to get extremely ill. Then after the death of her mother, which we know is coming from the very get-go, we see Tandi's attempts to glue her life back together after the loss of her mother. Namely, we see her attempts to try to build a new family for herself. This book is not told in a linear way. From vignette to vignette, you don't know where you are in Tandi's life until you've really sunk into the emotion of the passage. I found this to be a success of this novel. In many ways, I found it comparable to H is for Hawk by Helen Macdonald. Helen Macdonald's book is a work of nonfiction that talks about her time spent training a goshawk, a notoriously difficult bird to train, after the sudden death of her father. This book, though it is definitely still a novel, could really be seen as semi-autobiographical, considering this book draws heavily from Zinzi Clemmons' own experience losing her mother to breast cancer. The scattered structure of this book that was also present in H is for Hawk, I feel, really helps you get into the mind of someone who has just experienced a traumatic loss. Being someone who has never experienced that amount of traumatic loss, I felt it really painted the picture of what it must be like in that situation, how one's thoughts must just run wild. I feel like a narrative structure that mimics that feeling of not knowing what to do and not knowing what to feel, I think it helps the reader go there mentally. Very recently, I had the pleasure to hear Zinzi Clemmons speak at the White Whale bookstore here in Pittsburgh. I thought it was a really great experience that helped me gain even more insight into the novel. She mentioned during her Q&A session with another writer who was interviewing her that she kept a journal during the time that her mother was extremely ill, which I imagine she drew heavily from during the writing process of this book. She mentioned that she wrote this book in fragments. Then she printed out the manuscript and kind of put all the pieces together, rearranged everything until it felt right to her. I think the fact that she did that made this book feel more organic and certainly lent itself to the scattered structure that I just mentioned a moment ago. Also, during this talk, Zinzi mentioned her background in science, saying that she tried her hand at medical school before permanently making the switch to philosophy and writing. She mentioned the place that her scientific, more logical mindset had in her grief process. Her attempts to figure out or make sense of her grief are what led her to write this novel. She mentioned that writing about her mother's death, and writing about death in general, is what got her started in writing this novel. And you can really feel that palpably in the writing and the structure of this novel. In the novel, you see her going back and forth with herself. You see her making visual representations of how she sees her grief in the form of graphs. You see her lay out definitions relating to loss as to try to even assign a name to what she's feeling. I'm going to read for you one section that I think highlights her hurt and confusion brilliantly. In this section, Tandi is having a very difficult time reconciling the fact that her mother has a very real, living place in her memory with the fact that her mother no longer has a physical presence. She has died. I am most troubled when my mother is very present to me, when I dream of her extra vividly and can hear her voice. Even when I wake up, I am left with the eerie sensation of how I used to feel. Scared, loving and small in comparison in her presence. In these moments, I feel that she is still alive, and I am talking to her in my mind, but now she cannot answer back. I feel that I have some kind of beautiful secret. I love this new magical mom who is always watching over me, whose counsel I can seek in an instant, whose advice frequently matches my own wishes and desires. I don't know how to place this new mother, my dead mother, with the mother who was alive. When I look at her grave, I feel it the most. How can she be there when she is still here, inside me? My mother is dead, but I still see her, but I still feel her. I can still hear her voice, even now as I am speaking to you, but she is dead. When I look at this picture of her at the beach, I can feel the sun on my skin. I can hear the way she spoke to me, but she is gone. I can dream her. I can hear her cry. She tells me what happened that day, and she cries with me. She tells me not to be afraid. But she is dead. A part of her is still alive in me, but she is gone. She will live forever in heaven, but she is not on earth. Parts of her will live on in the trees and the streams and the birds of tomorrow. She is the water and the plants and the bits of dust I see swirls in columns of light, but she is dead. If I look long enough at a flower, I can see the color of her cheeks and the stigma, but she is not here. It's almost like in this passage, Tandi's mother is beginning to split in two. There's the memory of her mother that Tandi keeps alive versus the real person that her mother once was. There are many powerful examples like this throughout the book. The consistent thread throughout this book is the looming desperation to try to make sense of something that will never be able to be made sense of. Her mother's death will never make sense. Her grief will never make sense. I've never before read a book that approaches death and grief in this way. And I think I clicked with it so much because being a more logical person as well, I believe that this is the way that I am going to react when I undoubtedly have to face this eventually. In other hard situations that I've been through, I am the type of person who tries so hard to make sense of things when some things just don't make any sense. I found this to be a very powerful book that gets to the point, not just in length, but in substance as well. There's no dancing around the fact that Tandi has lost her mother and that now she has found herself lost and throwing herself into things, trying to fill the void that her mother has left. Although the synopsis of this book claims that it goes into detail about the immigrant experience or issues of race, I didn't find that the book touches upon those subjects as much as it does about loss and all the different forms that loss takes. I did not find the book to be any worse off because of it, but it was a little bit different than what I was expecting. Is this a book I would recommend? Absolutely. I think it definitely lives up to all the praise that it's receiving right now, and it's receiving a lot. Zinzi Clemmons, in her talk that I attended, said that a great novel will ask a huge question and then answer 75% of it. I do believe that this book achieved that, but I also believe that it's asking way more than one question. But the book does not answer any one of those questions entirely, leaving plenty of room for the reader to interpret and bring their own meaning into the story. And that is certainly what I think a great novel does. If you've read this book or want to read this book, I would love to hear from you in the comment section down below. If you'd like to talk to me somewhere else on social media, all the links to my profiles are in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.